Hello everybody, my name is Teresa Croy. I'm a naturalist with the Woodbury County Conservation Board and based here at the Dorothy Pico Nature Center. Today we're going to learn about owl pellet dissection. Owls, as you may know, are a nocturnal bird of prey that hunt at night and eat things like rodents such as mice or rats. They can also eat other animals like voles, moles, birds, insects, and even bats. A pellet forms when an owl eats his prey. He cannot digest all of his food as he is missing a crop in his body. That's an organ that birds have where they can store food to digest later. So when an owl eats, his food passes through his gizzard and then into the stomach. So things that they cannot digest are the feathers, the fur, and the bones of their prey. Those are gonna form together, and then he will cough that back up a little bit later on. You can sometimes find pellets if you know where an owl roosts at night. I live on an acreage and have found pellets below one of my barns where we had great horned owls roosting, which is pretty cool. Here, we actually do order our pellets. So they come pre-wrapped and disinfected in a piece of foil. When we open that up, you can see what the pellet looks like. And you may even be able to see there are some little pieces of bone sticking out. So we're gonna go through dissecting that here in just a little bit. Here are some other pellets. Sometimes they are different colors depending on the prey that they eat. This one has some partially shown bones and skulls, and here are just pieces of bones that we have found in other pellets previously. We also like to use an identification chart to help us figure out what types of animals our owl ate. So this one shows rodents, shrews, moles, and birds, and you can look at the different types of bones. So obviously skulls, the jaws, that's the lower section from the skull, shoulder blades, the legs, the hips, the hind legs. Other types of things would be the ribs, and they're a little bit differently shaped, and other vertebrae and smaller pieces in this are caterpillar larvae, exoskeletons, types of things. There are lots of different identification charts out there on the internet. This one came from Pellets Inc., where we order our pellets from. And these are bones that we have collected and then just glued on so you can see all of the different types of things that we find. The really small bones are hard to keep, so we usually just keep the skulls, leg bones, hip bones, ribs that are a little bit easier to see. And obviously this came from a larger mammal. This is probably from a squirrel. So you can see those bones are a little bit bigger than these other ones that are probably from a mouse. So let's go ahead and get started dissecting our owl pellet. An owl pellet is the part that an owl cannot digest from its food. They're gonna eat a variety of rodents, birds, moles, shrews, and other prey, even including things like insects, moths, sometimes even bats. So when they can't digest all of that, what we have is a pellet. It's a ball that forms, and then they cough that up later on. The good meaty parts of their food are gonna digest in their stomach, and the rest is gonna form in the ball. So this is the fur, the bones, the feathers of any of their prey that collects. We order pellets from Pellets Inc. We get them on the internet. They come wrapped in foil, and we are gonna pull those apart. So all of you in class today, if you have a pellet, you can unwrap your pellet from the foil. You can use gloves if you feel a little more comfortable. There are no germs or bacteria in our pellet though, because they have been cleaned from that. So when I dissect my pellet, I just use my fingers or fingernails to gently pull apart. Other helpful materials are toothpicks or tweezers if you really feel a little more comfortable or easier to use to kind of pull those apart. So you can see here as I pull my pellet, the fur stretches and comes apart. I see some orange in my pellet. So that right there tells me I have some rodent teeth, because all rodents have orange or yellow teeth. As I roll here, kind of gently pull it apart, I am uncovering a skull. What are you guys finding over there? So here, using the toothpicks kind of helps you get into some of these smaller places of your skull or your bones. So here's the top part of my skull, and here's the bottom jaw. I can see that orange tooth there, and you can see how that comes apart. If I flip it over, I can see the teeth here. I'm gonna lay that out. Sometimes you have to feel through the fur to actually find the bones, because you can't see them because they're so wrapped up, so you kind of have to feel your way through. It's kind of interesting, a lot of times the bottom jaws are pretty intact, but the top part of the skull, like usually the front part is fairly intact, but the back where the brain is, that tends to get broken and torn apart because our owls like to actually eat the brain. There's a lot of good minerals and vitamins in the brain. So a lot of raptors will eat the head and the brain first of their prey, and then they eat the rest of the body from there. So, and all raptors pellet, including our falcons and eagles and hawks. Theirs just are smaller. They have a crop so they can digest more of their food than the owls. The owls are missing that part in their body. Critters. Oh, here's a vertebrae. This looks like the sacrum here. Here's our bottom jaws. There's the skull. Here's teeth. Wow, okay, so here you can see all of the bones that are inside my pellet as I've pulled it open. And then this is where we just want to try and pull them all out of the fur to see what we have. You know, and definitely sometimes, like when you do the pellets, you'll find, did any of you find more than one skull? You know, it definitely depends on how much they eat of what all you will find. So sometimes they'll form a pellet with, you know, say 2.5 of their prey, or, you know, whatever amount needs to form, and then they cough that up. Okay, so here I found, this is the top part of the skull here. If we turn it over, you can see the teeth. Here's a tooth that fell out from the upper jaw. These are teeth that fell out also here. This is the lower jaw. These are the two pieces of the lower jaw. These are pieces of the skull that broke off. This would have covered the brain here. These are all rib bones, these really tiny thin pieces in here. All of these are the different leg bones and hip bones. You can see how they're a little thicker and the way they're shaped. And over here, all of these little pieces are the different sections of the vertebrae. And this is like another part of the vertebrae here. It just has a larger opening in comparison. And these are just little itty bitty tiny pieces of bone, whether they've broken from the legs or other sections. Sometimes it's difficult to tell what all of your bones are because they do break. You can also find the different finger bones. That might be one of those right in here, these smaller pieces, but these long skinny ones are the ribs.
All right, thanks for joining us today for owl pellet dissection. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. Please join us on Facebook or Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube page for more informational videos.